And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Kime versus Cameron. Step forward, please.
19-year-old telemarketer Janae Kime is suing her ex-boyfriend, 24-year-old landscaper Wade Cameron, for crashing her car by pulling the emergency brake while she was driving.
Miss Kime, according to your complaint, you were driving the defendant's car home from some sort of an event because he was intoxicated and couldn't drive. You got into an accident, you caused a great deal of damage to another car, and you were ordered to pay restitution, and you believe that the defendant should pay that restitution because it was his fault because he pulled the emergency brake.
Correct.
Which caused you to skid out of control and hit the other car. The defendant says he did in fact pull the emergency brake, but he pulled it because you were driving erratically. That's your defense.
Yes.
How do you know each other?
We're dating.
How old are you?
19.
And you?
24.
What was the date of the accident?
January 3rd, 2002.
Where were you coming from?
We were coming home from a party that night.
Had you gone together?
Yes.
Just the two of you?
No, there was 3 other people with us in the car.
Were the other 3 people in the back of the car intoxicated?
Yes.
But you were not?
I was not.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Janae Kime says ex-boyfriend Wade Cameron caused her car to crash when he abruptly pulled the emergency brake.
Okay. Now, tell me about the accident.
I was driving his car home from the party. Everything was all right. We were like 2 houses down from his house, and then all of a sudden he pulls up the emergency brake, and the car that I'm driving slides into this parked car, and the owners of the car were sitting in the car at that time. And so I pulled the car around the block and parked it at his house, and then we all went down to make sure that everything was okay. And I was in shock when this all happened at the time, you know, because it was such like a dramatic experience that I went through, and it brought back memories of...
Don't give me your memories. I'm not interested in your memories.
Okay.
So you went back to see if everybody was okay?
Right, and Wade had told me at the time that he had insurance on his car, so I figured everything was taken care of. I was in shock, so I left. And
you left before the police arrived?
Right. And I called him the next day, and I asked him what was going on. He gave me the number of the officer in Boulder that was handling the case. So I called her and let her know that I was driving the car, and then a couple days after that, I went up there. She wrote me a ticket, and then I went to court after that.
How did you contact the police, sir?
How did I contact the police? They contacted me.
You did. When?
The following day, or that evening.
So what did you tell them that evening?
I told them basically we were coming back from the party, and they were assuming that I was driving, but I wasn't, and because the person that was driving left the scene of the crime, so they were trying to direct it towards me. But I told them what happened, and that she had taken off, and they wanted a description of her and everything, and then that once that I'd gotten contact with her, to have her contact them.
Let me see the police report. Did you first tell the police that somebody else was driving the car, sir?
They were asking who it was, and I was describing who it was, and I didn't exactly say what she'd look like.
Who's Tamara?
I was a made-up person.
So you lied to the police?
Well, I didn't know her name exactly at the time. Like,
you didn't know whose name?
Well, I was drunk, so I was just mumbling out words.
Hey, don't try to get over on me. I'm smarter than you'll ever be in your whole life. Bird, do you have a piece of paper there?
I do.
Good. I want you to give her a piece of paper and give him a piece of paper, and I want each of them to write down, prior to today, when the last time was that each of these people saw each other, spent any time with each other. Do you understand my question? Prior to today.
Okay.
You need a pen? You need an extra pen? I want them to do it independently.
Thank you.
Look over here, sir. Eyes front. Write down the date.
The exact...
Write down the date that each of you remembers that you spent any time together prior to today's date. I'll take them. Thank you.
is hers, yours.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Now, what did you have to pay restitution for, by the way?
I had to pay restitution for $6,839 for the whole damage to the car that I hit.
Because he didn't have insurance?
Right, and yet he told me he did.
When did he tell you he did?
He told me he did that night before I was going to drive his car, because I was planning on driving them home anyways. And I was like, you have insurance, right? He's like, yes, I
Oh,
do.
sure, you asked him, do you have insurance? Oh, do I
No,
believe that?
I really did.
Do I believe that?
I really
Sure, I do believe that. You said to him, I'll drive your car because you're drunk. By the way, do you have insurance? I want to tell you something. I think that all of you people got together and made up a very good story. That's what I think. It's not going to wash with me. I don't believe he pulled the emergency brake. I believe the car spun out of control. Did you have a driver's license?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Good. After this whole thing happened, did he accept full responsibility?
We had had conversations, about this happening, and he promised that he would pay me $200 a month for all the restitution bills, because I have to pay $200 a month for the next 4 years for this car that he wrecked.
How much longer did you date after this incident?
We didn't date at all after this. The only time that we saw each other was just to converse about this, about the case, and about what
Really,
happened.
where were you?
It had been maybe at his house a couple times when I'd go up there.
At his house a couple of times?
Yeah, when I would go up there to go try to get the money, because I couldn't get a hold of him because he was avoiding my calls.
Okay. And when was the last time you saw him to ask him for money?
Last time that I saw him was a couple months ago. The last time I asked him for money was a couple weeks ago before I probably about 3 weeks ago before I went and filed a case in Boulder.
And where were you when you asked him for the money?
I was at my house on the phone the last time.
When was the last time you saw him?
The last time that I saw him was...
At his house, at your house?
At
out
his
for
house?
Coffee, something.
No, I just asked him for money. It was probably about 2 months ago.
And when was the last time you say you saw her?
Last time I saw her was when we went to court for that.
Which was when?
When I don't know the exact date when that court date was, but we had the same court date, so that's the last time I saw her.
Uh-huh. And did you tell the judge in court that you had pulled, that this was all your fault?
Basically, just to get it was already on
I'm
the
asking
court.
you a question.
Yes.
Did you tell the judge in court that the accident was all your fault? The answer is yes or no.
Yes.
What did the judge say to you?
That was it.
Were you ordered to pay any fine?
No.
Any restitution?
No.
Interesting. Well, one of you say that the last time you saw each other was February 28th. One of you says the last time you saw each other was January 10th. It's interesting, isn't it?
So
Isn't it?
Very interesting.
Case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
That's all.
Felt that she was about to wreck the car, and I wanted to stop the car so that we wouldn't wreck, and then actually we ended up wrecking anyways.
sometimes it doesn't really pay to be a good person, because obviously things don't come out of it, right?
Sure, she might have been the designated driver, but maybe she was a little crazy that night.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Batiste versus Franquitos. Step forward, please.
Sports attire salesman Edgar Batiste is suing former friend, 24-year-old bartender Alicia Franquito, for selling him bogus airline tickets.
Mr. Batiste,
Good evening, Your Honor.
according to your complaint, sir, you purchased some Buddy airline tickets from the defendant. I don't know what these are. You're going to explain that to me. And according to you, you didn't get what you paid for. You want your money back. And it says you don't get your money back. This was a final sale. So first, you want to tell me what a Buddy ticket is, sir?
Yes, Your Honor. I purchased 3 buddy passes from Alicia Franquito.
Could you keep your voice up? I want you to tell me what they are. I've just told you. They're Buddy passes.
Yes.
What are they?
They're airline travel tickets.
I never heard of that. Can I see what they look like?
Can I explain it to you?
Sure.
Is interested.
Basically, if someone works for an airline, they can give free tickets to people. And I had bought them from a friend who knows the person who works for the airline.
Just a minute. So the airline give to their employees free tickets
Yes.
that they can use like a companion ticket?
Yes.
So that the airline employee can take a companion with them to go someplace.
Or they can just give them away to people to use.
But
for
they're not
themselves.
supposed to sell them.
Right.
They're not supposed to sell them.
Exactly.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Mr. Batiste, well, it says right here that this can't be sold, right?
I guess
Did you
so,
read
Your
that?
Honor. No, I didn't at the time, Your Honor. I didn't.
Well, you knew it couldn't be sold or bought. You know that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
In any event, the reason you want your money back is because they told you that you had to pay a certain amount of money in addition to these tickets to
Yes,
travel?
ma'am.
And the person you sold them to somebody else.
Some friends were supposed to travel.
You sold them to somebody else.
Yes, ma'am.
And the person you sold them to said, I want my money back, because it says that I had to give them more money to use these tickets, according to your complaint. And now you want your money back from her.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
she should get her money back from the person she bought them from. Right?
Yes.
So am I correct that this is a whole little scam? Somebody who works for the airlines gets free tickets, and then they start selling them. How much did you pay for them?
40.
You paid 40. You sold them to him for 175 apiece. Right? Shh! And how much did you sell them for?
My friends paid me $175 each, Your Honor.
So you were even.
And I paid her. Yes, ma'am.
Give those back to him, please. Okay?
Okay.
Good. Mr. Batiste, I'm going to tell you what the law is, what we call the doctrine of clean hands. That means that when you come into a court of law and ask a court to give you justice, you have to come in with clean hands, not having done anything wrong with regard to the particular events surrounding the case. You did something wrong. So did she. You did something wrong by buying black market tickets. She did something wrong by buying black market tickets. So do you know what courts say to folks like you who did something wrong? They tell you to get out. They say, don't waste our time. We're not interested in trying to help people who are doing the wrong thing. We have enough time to spend trying to help people who are doing the right thing and getting screwed. We don't try to help people who you screw a little bit, she screws a little bit, and then you come into court and say, please help me because I was screwed more than her. We don't have time for that. Goodbye, Mr. Batiste.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
I sort of expected this decision.
I expected it.
My buddies gave me the money. They're out of the money. I'm out of a little money myself.
I don't know. I just knew I shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Next time I will do my ticket buying through an internet service.
Homemaker Leslie Rogers is suing her former nanny, 21-year-old Nicole Stowers, for the cost of a plane ticket. Nicole says she doesn't owe.
Order. All rise. Come to order. Everybody get up. Thank you. Quiet, please. Your Honor, this is case number 397 on the calendar in the matter of Rogers versus Stowers. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats.
Mrs. Rogers, you hired the defendant as a nanny, and she worked for you for a very short period of time before quitting. It is your claim that she owes you some money because you made travel arrangements for your family along with the defendant, and it was, you claim, her agreement that if she did not go on these trips with you, or this trip with you, she would pay you for her ticket. Ms. Stowers says that she quit after a couple of weeks because her job responsibilities increased. She wasn't happy about that. And that she did agree to reimburse you for any of your out-of-pocket expenses, which she did by sending you a check for change of name or whatever that had to be done to change the tickets. So why don't you tell me when she came to work for you?
She came to work for me in October, early October, and
she was hired as a result of an ad that you put in the paper?
Yes. Yeah.
And what were her job responsibilities?
At the time when I hired her, I explained that the job was a very busy job, that it wasn't for anybody that just wanted to babysit or sit and watch TV, that it was for a person that had a lot of energy, and it was a lot of laundry. I have 3 very busy kids running around, making messes all the time, and also that we had trips planned.
All right, 3 kids and laundry is what I hear so far.
And house cleaning. House cleaning nanny was the ad that I put in the paper.
You have a copy of the paper?
I'm afraid I don't, Your Honor.
What did the ad say?
It was for a mother's helper, and with light housekeeping, 3 kids.
Yes.
Your Honor, I never said anything about light house cleaning. I made it very clear that it was heavy house cleaning from the very beginning.
What was the ad?
The ad was for mother's helper, house cleaning, child care, homework, kind of a variety of positions.
Oh, not in the ad, madam. Miss Rogers, don't make it up as you're going. I've read lots of ads for mother's helpers, nannies, housekeepers. They don't go into homework. That doesn't happen. Yeah, and you don't have a copy of the ad.
No, I'm afraid I don't, but it did say schoolwork in the ad.
How large a house do you have?
Not a large house, Your Honor. It's
Why don't you tell me how large a house you have?
2-bedroom rambler with hardwood floors.
And you have 3 children. How old are they?
2, 5, and 11.
Do you work outside of the home?
No, I don't.
So it's really helping you.
Yes, it is. But most of the, I must add that most of the responsibility of the house cleaning is left to my mother's helper. And I make that very clear when I interview them, that I like to spend more time at my daughter's school and with her doing homework. And what I needed my helper to do is help keep the house clean and run the kids around to their activities.
And how much were you paying her for this job?
At that time...
How much were you being paid?
$1,500 a month.
And how many days a week were you working?
5 days a week.
How many hours a day?
It was usually 8 hours a day, sometimes more.
Okay. Now tell me about the lawsuit.
Okay. When I hired her, I made it quite clear that we had...
Just tell me what you said. Sorry, don't tell me what you made clear.
Okay, I said that we're taking these trips, and I need to make sure that you're happy with your job before we buy the tickets, because once we buy the tickets, we're locked in. And so I waited 3 weeks before I asked her how she was liking the job and if everything was cool for her. And she said it was, and that she was happy and that she was going to go on the trips with us. So at that time, my husband made the travel arrangements on the computer while we were all standing in the kitchen. My husband printed this out and gave her a copy of each of the trips, so she had a copy of her own, explaining when we would be gone and when we'd be coming back and where we would be going.
Go ahead.
And so everything was fine for a while. Nicole seemed like she was very quiet. And so I kept asking her, is everything okay, Nicole? Are you sure you're happy with your job and everything? She says, yeah, I'm fine. 2 to 3 weeks went by, and it was payday. And my husband paid Nicole, and she left, and everything was fine. And then the next morning, she called in sick. The next day was her day off. The following day, when she should have been there at 1 o'clock, she called me at 1 o'clock. She said that she'd found that the job was just too much work for her and that she wanted to spend more time with her boyfriend, John. At that time, I said, that's terrible because you're just leaving me hanging here. What am I going to do with the kids tonight? She knew I had an important engagement that I had to go to that evening. And I ended up having to call my parents. They're 72 years old, and have them come up to the house so they could watch the 3 children for me. And at that time, I said, Nicole, what about the plane tickets? We can't change the names on those. What are we going to do? And she said, I have the money in the bank, and I'm really sorry about leaving you hanging like this, but I'm going to reimburse you for the money. And she said that she wanted me to bring her a copy of the tickets. 2 days later, she gave me this letter and a copy of the check that she decided. She kind of added up what she felt she owed, which was not accurate.
Just a second.
Okay.
Okay, and she sent you a check for $172, which you didn't cash. Is that right? Okay. All right, now, what do you claim she owes you for?
I claim that she owes me for the 3rd trip that we could not change the name.
3rd trip is to where?
It's to, Darren, was it to Miami?
Fort Lauderdale.
To Fort Lauderdale.
When is that trip scheduled for?
That is April.
April 3rd or 4th.
April 3rd. I was under the impression I could not change the name on the first ticket, and this is a document saying that the electronic, these cannot be changed, and that was why I was under the impression that she would owe me for that full amount on the first ticket that she paid me. $50, was that correct, Darren?
Yes.
But you could change the name.
We found that we could change the name.
Right, okay.
So that's not what we're suing her for.
All right, Nicole?
Yes.
Let me hear your end of the story.
Well, when I first started working for him, it was a nanny job. I was there to take care of the kids and clean up after the kids. It changed, like, after about 2 weeks, it changed from watching the kids and taking care of the kids to being their maid, basically. I was mopping their floors, cleaning their bathrooms, ironing, cleaning up after the dog, everything. The second day I worked there, she asked me if I wanted to go on the trip with them to the Caribbean in January. And I said yes, because it's 3 months away. I was doing okay in the job, like it felt comfortable, but it was only the second day. So I agreed to go with them on that trip, and I agreed to pay for the trip if I backed out, if I quit, which I paid for when I quit. As far as the one in April...
How much was that, the change of name on that trip in January?
Well, they gave me, I have the letter here that they wrote me, and he originally wanted me to pay $359 for the ticket, but I called Alaska Air to see how much the ticket was, and I found out that he bought it with his mileage, and he only paid $5 for it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I can understand why she quit. Easy. It was a lot of work, and you were not paying her a lot of money.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Leslie Rogers says former nanny Nicole Stowers agreed to accompany her family on a vacation. Leslie says right before the trip, Nicole quit.
How did he pay $5 for it?
Because he used his miles off his card, so he paid $5 for the ticket.
Is that right, sir?
I bought 6 tickets.
Is that correct?
2 of the tickets I paid $364. 4 of the tickets I bought with miles. I'm not suing her for that ticket at all.
I understand that you're not suing her for that ticket. You did write her a note, however, that says, Nicole, you can still use these tickets for a round trip to Miami, round trip to Fort Lauderdale, and the Miami trip cost $359, and the Fort Lauderdale trip cost $365, which indicated that you expected her to pay for these.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I understand why, listen, I understand that you are annoyed, Miss Rogers, that she left you in a lurch without giving you adequate notice. I understand that. I also understand that for $375, you're asking her to not only act as the nanny, but you're asking her to do house cleaning, not light house cleaning, house cleaning. It was a lot of work, and you were not paying her a lot of money. So I can understand why she quit. Easy. And you did not have any prearrangement with her, even according to your own testimony, Miss Rogers. No prearrangement with her that she was going to pay for this Fort Lauderdale trip. According to your own testimony, what you said was when you called her afterwards, she said she feels really badly and she's going to reimburse you for what you were out of pocket on the ticket. That's what you just testified to. That's what you just testified to. You said you were standing around. You said, shall I book these tickets? She said, yes, you can book these tickets. And we were all standing around in the kitchen and we booked the tickets. Then you said after she quit, and you called her and you said, you're leaving me in a lurch. She said, yes, I understand. And what about the tickets? And she said, we'll reimburse you for whatever out of pocket was. There was not a prearrangement when you bought these tickets, especially in April, that you bought in when? October or November? You don't have indentured servants these days, Miss Rogers. Something could happen in 6 months or 8 months' time. So if your husband bought tickets on miles, maybe you should have saved his miles and bought the one for Fort Lauderdale. I think she's a very nice young lady for sending you $172. If I were you, I would cash the check. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She was lying and saying that it was more work than I had told her from the beginning, and that's not true.
If I wouldn't have quit on payday, I would have been the one suing them for my wage.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Mercado versus Atkinson. Step forward, please.
9/11 dispatcher Dawn Mercado is suing her former live-in boyfriend, mechanic Jeremy Atkinson, for unpaid rent, utility bills, and unpaid loans. Jeremy says she kicked him out because he didn't get along with her 5-year-old son.
Miss Mercado, you and the defendant were boyfriend and girlfriend, and you lived together for a brief period of time in an apartment that you leased together. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Something happened. Mr. Atkinson decided to leave, according to you. He left, and you want him to be responsible for the remainder of the lease, at least his portion of the remainder of the lease. In addition, you claim that he used your credit card, made certain charges that you want to be reimbursed for.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Atkinson says that you told him to leave the apartment. You actually kicked him out of the apartment, so why should he be responsible for the rent? And that any charges that he made on your credit card, he paid you for in cash. Is that right, sir?
Yes.
Okay. When did you move in together?
He moved into my studio apartment with me in the beginning of May, and we moved into our apartment, which we had a signed lease, on June 15th.
So what happened?
We got along very well until my son was diagnosed with having mixed ADHD. Him and my son had some problems.
How old is your son?
5 years old.
What kind of problems was your son having with Mr. Atkinson, or vice versa?
They argued constantly.
He argued with a 5-year-old?
Yes, ma'am.
What were you arguing with the 5-year-old about?
It's just whenever you'd ask him to do something, he would say he'd do it and then wouldn't go do it. Like clean his room, he wouldn't do that. If you told him to go take a shower, he wouldn't do it. And I just didn't have the patience.
We found that he had a hard time focusing, and that's why he was diagnosed. He went through several psychologists, psychiatrists, family doctors. He's now on medication, and he sees a psychiatrist anywhere from 3 to 4 times a month. He is having a lot of improvement, and he had made the comment to my mom and dad that he thought Mr. Atkinson was a monster and that he was afraid to leave with him. I explained to Mr. Atkinson that I was not going to choose between him and my son, that my son was my priority, and that we had several disagreements about that. And it just led to problems between that and financial problems. And I never kicked Mr. Atkinson out. I told him I could no longer support him and that he was welcome to leave.
You said a couple of things that were pretty smart. You said, A, I wasn't going to choose between him and my 5-year-old. That's a no contest. You have to go. I am not finding that by your saying to him, there's the door, he did not take that as, I better get out of here or there's going to be difficulty. He says you threw him out. I think that that's what happened. Whatever, he's not going to pay the rent. Now let's hear about the credit card.
On several occasions, Mr. Atkinson asked to borrow money with the intention that he would pay me back.
Yes, it's true, Your Honor, but the majority of the time, money was reimbursed on my payday in the form of cash, or if I did any side work, she got the money from it.
Is that true?
He would give me cash for some of it, ma'am, but these are the things that he has not reimbursed me for.
Did you keep a running log of how much he spent and how much he reimbursed you when he paid you in cash?
No, ma'am.
Then I'm not getting involved. There is absolutely no way of you determining, at least for me, how much he owes you in the months that he lived there when you had this rather fluid financial arrangement. It's over. You made a mistake. Put a period. Move on. Your parents live close by?
About 30 minutes away, ma'am.
Do they help you?
As when they can.
Good. You have another few months to pay this rent. You're going to stay in the apartment or not?
Yes, ma'am. I cannot get out of the lease.
Good. That's what I think you should do. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He was having a lot of conflict between my son, and he was not paying his rent and utilities on time.
It was a misfortunate incident, and she asked me to leave, and I just did that.
I didn't ask him to leave. I told him that if he wanted to, I was not keeping him there by force. I never asked him to leave.
I just, feel that it was too soon, too early, I guess.
It's unfortunate it had to come to the end that it did.
20-year-old student Stephanie Aldrich is suing her ex-boyfriend, 24-year-old cook Michael Wynn, for the cost of plane tickets to visit him and for the cost to file a restraining order.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 175 on the calendar in the matter of Aldrich versus Wynn. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Miss Aldrich, the defendant is your former boyfriend. You claim you loaned him some money. You want it back.
Yes, ma'am.
He says he owes you nothing. When did you make the first loan? What was it for? I mean, if I look a little frustrated, it's just that it seems to me that I see an awful lot of young women standing on that side of the table and young men standing on this side of the table, which suggests to me that women, for some reason, enable men to take advantage of them. Then when the relationship's all over, they want their money back.
Well, when he said he would pay me back. Well, at our
see a lot more women on this side of the table than I see men. Means that they're a lot smarter. And I didn't think so. Go ahead. When was the first loan?
I want to say it was on my first trip to see him in Kentucky.
What do you mean your first trip to see him in Kentucky?
He moved to Kentucky during our relationship.
Didn't that give you a clue?
Well, he said he was mad at Florida and that was his home and he wanted to go back home. So
he was mad at Florida, but he loved you. So he moved back to Kentucky.
Yes. So he moved up there.
Ding-a-ling.
That's what my family's been telling me, but I just didn't listen.
Oh, boy.
So you went back to Kentucky to visit him?
Yes, ma'am, I did. He said he paid my first little plane ticket up there.
Yeah.
And so I went up there. He was going to pay me back when I got to Kentucky, the money for the plane ticket.
How much was the ticket?
The first one was $138.
And you paid for it?
Yes, ma'am. It's in my... I have
$138. Did he ever pay you back?
No, ma'am.
No. But you went again?
Well, yes. I thought he would have a job, and
but you went again.
But this time we would go in half because I figured, you know, it's a 50-50 thing, our relationship, so we would go in half. I'm like, well, because he wanted me to come and see him really bad, so he'd pay the first one, and I wanted to see him the second time. So I would say, okay, we'll just pay half.
When was the first time you went to see him? What date?
10/31/01.
And when was the second time?
12/05/01.
Okay. So he paid you nothing of $138 for 2 months, so you went again.
Yes, ma'am.
That's smart. Well, what was his reason for not paying you back in that 2 months, the $138?
He can't keep a job longer than 3 weeks.
Then I wouldn't have gone a second time.
Well, he supposedly had a job again.
Then I wouldn't have gone a second time till I got some money, honey. What else?
So I went up there a second time, and he was going to pay half of that ticket.
All right, go ahead.
And so I get
I'm not
up
impressed.
The first day we go up there, we go to turn in his work uniform back in, and I ask him why. He said he lost the job. I was like, why? He had no cut and dry excuse, so he used my money for the remainder of the week.
So?
So he said he would pay me back half when...
I'm not interested. What else?
Finally comes back to Florida.
He came back to Florida?
Yes, ma'am.
Now he's made at Kentucky, he came back to Florida.
I don't really know.
You don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
So he comes back. We go on a spring break trip. We're supposed to save each $500, put it in together, and that would be our spending money for spring break.
And what month was this?
3/21/02.
3/02. Now, from October 01 until 3/02, has he given you back the $138?
No, ma'am.
Half of the $138 for the second trip?
No, ma'am. The second ticket was more.
Whatever it was, has he given you back any of the money that you used to spending money on the second trip?
Once before we broke up, he paid $106 to me once, and then we
$106 for what?
Just all the accumulations of money he said he would pay me back for.
Now you're going to each save up $500.
Yes,
to
for
go
the,
on another
spring
trip.
break trip, yes.
On a big spring break trip. Why don't you save up $500 and give you the money he owes you?
I figured, why won't he pay me back? He's my boyfriend. Because we had done a previous trip before, the previous spring break to Daytona, and we both put in $400, and we both put in our half and everything, and that was great. So I figured these second times, oh, he didn't, you know, he's in Kentucky, he was tight on money. Okay, he's back home now. We'll get him another good job, but I really want to go on spring break because I've never really, you know, I wanted to go to...
That's your problem.
Yes, ma'am.
So, he's put in $500 each. What happened?
Yes. He can't save the money, so I save $250. We go down there, we spend my $250, and then he said he would pay me back for the hotels. So,
I'd just like to hear a word from Mr. Wynn. Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Listen to me.
We started...
I don't listen to me. I'm doing fine.
Thank you.
But that's none of your business.
Okay. Our relationship started January 17th of 01, okay? The first date that she has on here is October 21st of 01. This is where she starts keeping track of what I owe her, what she says that I should pay her back. From that time to the 10th, we're using all my money. There wasn't a question of what you need to pay. I took care of it. You know, the plane ticket, I never said I'd pay for it. It was her decision to come out there. It was her choice. You know, she came out there. She paid for it. The trip to Daytona, I do believe I wrote her a check for an amount of maybe $100 or $200 right off the bat before we even left because I had my mother give it to her. I think I was waiting on a paycheck and the cash was just not accessible at that time. And that's pretty much it.
No, I want to hear more.
What do you want to hear?
Did you ever tell her that you would pay for the hotel?
I did not say I would pay.
No, you didn't even let me finish the question yet, Mr. Wynn. She finds you irresistible. I do not.
Not anymore.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So you have a future plan?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
He's not part of your future.
I know. I figured that out.
You figured wrong.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephanie Aldrich says ex-boyfriend Michael Wynn owes for several loans. Michael says he didn't realize she was keeping a tab.